With section 10.1, in chapter 10 in general, and dealing with predicate logic derivations, what you're going to find is that all of the tricks and tools that you learned in chapter 5 for sentential logic derivations apply just as well here. In fact, one of the things that I would like to point out that might be obvious, and if it was obvious to you, that's great. If it wasn't obvious, then it might be kind of mind-blowing in terms of just how much of a parallel there is between the two, in the sense that a predicate logic derivation is exactly the same as a sentential logic derivation if you use instantiating constants and you remove the quantifiers. Now what I mean by that is something like this. So for instance, let's take what's going on here with 1e. If we remove the quantifiers and just put in instantiating constants, then something like this would be premise 1, and then premise 2 is, and we're asked to show kg. Well, I mean, that's super obvious, right? I mean, this is just a matter of what, 1, 2, conditional elimination, and we get kg. I mean, there's nothing to that at all. So the only real complexity in this problem is dealing with these quantifiers. And so that's the purpose of these two examples, is as a kind of warm-up to get you used to what's different about dealing with the quantifiers. And you'll notice, of course, that in some cases, as I mentioned with the conceptual portion of the lecture in the PowerPoint slides, two of the rules are fairly straightforward and really pretty obvious, and then the other two are not quite as obvious, and they take a little bit of getting used to. And so that's the only challenge, really, for what we're going to encounter here. Almost everything else in the chapter is basically the same. All of the tricks that you learned before still apply in terms of conditional introduction, negation introduction, and elimination, the application of the different rules, the use of functions, the identity, all that stuff is the same. The real difference comes in dealing with these quantifiers, and there are only a couple of things with the quantifiers that are more challenging in terms of dealing with their scope, and then the two rules that are a little more challenging to deal with. So hopefully, even though this stuff looks a lot different than what we've seen before, it's really pretty tractable when you boil it down to what's actually different from what you've already learned. So if you've mastered the material from chapter 5, this stuff isn't going to be a huge leap forward once you learn those few things that you have to deal with. Now, for problem 1a, what we have here is very straightforward. And as I mentioned before, I mean, if you're just looking at instantiating constants, then what you're asked to derive is not even different than what you have to begin with. But seeing how it is that we can manipulate these quantifiers is ultimately what this exercise is about with 1a. So what we have in the beginning is for all x, f of x, and we're trying to get to for all y, f of y. So clearly, what we need to do is move to this by way of introducing an instantiating constant, and this is an arbitrary constant, not a specific individual, and so that's going to open up some possibilities in terms of being able to get back to the universal. So we instantiate a constant there, saying universal elimination. Because the constant doesn't appear anywhere else, it's perfectly acceptable for us to do universal introduction. And so we get the following. And that's perfectly valid, just as it should be, because it doesn't really matter what you call the variable. So that's all that's going on there. But this gives us an important and very simple, I mean really as simple as it can be, instance of universal introduction, which is one of the rules that is not obvious. But you can see here, this is a very bare bones, and this is why I like this example so much, because you have this one constant that you introduce for a very simple purpose. It's not included in any of the assumptions, and it's not going to be included in this formulation. And so it's okay for us then to generalize from that constant, which is not really an individual. And that's basically what the secret is there in terms of universal introduction, is that you can generalize from specific, the instantiating constant, to universal, which is this formulation down here, basically if the constant itself doesn't really refer to anything. It refers to an individual, sort of, hypothetically, basically. So we're saying, well, if there was an individual A, but that individual could still be anything. So that individual still has the same sort of feel as the universal. And so that allows us then to take that individual and go back to the universal. So that's why that works, and hopefully this example will make it very clear how it is to use this particular rule, because like I said, I mean, there are really only a couple of complex things in this chapter, and this is going to be one of them. So hopefully that will help. Okay, once we've done the first one, doing 1E is perhaps even easier than the example that we had in 1A. Because here, all we need to do is somehow dispense with these quantifiers to end up with something that we can use to cross the conditional and get to kg, which is what we want to derive. And so this is very, very straightforward in terms of it being a repeated application of universal elimination. And so what we do is we say, okay, well, let's do universal elimination and get rid of one of our variables. And so then we're left with something like this. And then we do it again. Now we have HAB, and it's just like it was in sentential logic. We can cross the conditional and get what it is that we want. So, very straightforward. Once again, you have something that looks as though you should be able to turn it into that, cross the conditional, and you get what it is that you're after. And in fact, this is very straightforward as long as you know how to deal with the quantifiers. Now, section 10.1, the other tricky one, aside from universal introduction, is existential elimination. That pair forms the only real challenge in terms of new strategies in the section. And so, dealing with existential elimination. Now, what's going on with existential elimination? Well, what happens is we take something that begins as an existential, so that we know for some x, f of x. And what we do is we assume that there is an individual, whatever the individual is, that corresponds to that x. So there exists an x, f of x, and we're going to call it a. So we assume fa. If we assume fa and then we go about showing a bunch of stuff, if we get to something useful, whatever that something useful happens to be, maybe it's, I don't know, something like that, then we can assert this that we've shown. So we can bring that back here and assert it. And that's exactly what this is. So once again, we have a pretty clean example of how to use a rule that is otherwise not all that terribly obvious. So, but once you get used to it, I think it does make a certain amount of sense. So that's precisely what we're going to do here. In the very beginning, we're going to say, okay, well, how are we going to get to there exists an x, lxx, and hxx? Well, obviously, hxx is going to come to us by way of this. We're going to say that there exists a w, hww, and that w is going to be x. So that makes sense. Well, for all x and y, lxy, it seems perfectly obvious that we could have lxx there, because for all x and for all y. So it must apply if they were both x. So I know that I'm going to have lxx, and I know that I can have hxx, which means that if all x and y, lxy, then that means surely that for some x, lxx. So it makes sense. It makes logical sense. So we can see how that we should be able to prove something like this from the premises that we're given. Now, let's take a look at how this is actually done. So if we start with hww and assume, for the purpose of existential elimination, some instantiating constant. So let's call it a. What can we do with that then? Well, one of the things that we can do with that is try and use it for something like that. In other words, try to get it into that form. So we first need to work with then premise 1. And so what we can do is eliminate the universal by giving it a name. So we put a particular instantiating constant in place of one of the universals, in this case x. So for all y. So I've replaced x with a. And then correspondingly, if I do that again, then I'm left with L A A. Well, now I have H A A and L A A. So let me just straightforwardly AND those together. By conjunction introduction. Now, if we have this, and we know that that works for some constant, then we can do existential introduction and get what it is that we want to derive. Now, as I said before, with existential elimination, I assume some constant, and then if I can take that and go forward and actually show something worthwhile, that thing that I have shown can then be used or can then be claimed outside of the assumption. So I can discharge the assumption and still be left with the same thing, which is nice because that's exactly what we wanted to prove. And we're done.